Arm King, and today we're going to be talking about journals in Foundry, how to create them, how to use them, how to set them up for your campaign. Now, journals can be intimidating at first if you've never actually used them or you're first learning how to use Foundry, or if you're a first-time DM, how do I even start using these journals? And this whole tutorial goes through that step by step. I'll also be covering two particular modules that I like to use with my journals, and I'll show you how I incorporate those. But before we get started, I want to give a special shout out to Foundry Hub. Now, Foundry Hub is this great website for all things Foundry. Go there, you can read up about news. It also has links to all the Discord channels, even all the foreign language Discord channels if you're playing Foundry in a different language. It even has a great searching mechanism for all the different modules and packages. And I like to go through here and look at new modules or updates. You can click on any one of these modules and it will go in there and tell you, you can leave comments, you can rank them, it can show you the last time they're updated and how these modules work. So visit the Foundry Hub, check it out. It's a great resource for all us Foundry fans. I'll put a link in below. Now, let's go ahead and talk about creating these journals. I'm going to be using GM Notes and Polyglot. I'll show you about how I use those and incorporate those into my journal. Now, let me talk a little bit about the philosophy that I have as a dungeon master running my campaigns. I like to break down my campaigns into areas. An area is a set of locations and or scenes in which my party or players will spend at least one, if not more, game sessions in. Now, areas usually mean that the scenes and the locations have some synchronicity to one another. An area could be a town or a village, or it could be a dungeon or a castle or a ruin, which they have multiple locations or multiple scenes in. Now, the way I use my journal entries is I create folders, parent folders for each area. Now, we're going to be creating a scene from Curse of Strahd, from the village of Kresk, and we're going to be creating just the scene here, which I have a battle map of, which is the gatehouse scene. So that I'll have all the notes, references, stat blocks, and everything. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a folder for Kresk, and everything that happens in the village of Kresk, every scene, every location is going to have its own separate journal entry. We're just going to do one to show you how we do this. So Kresk is the parent folder. I'm just going to type in Kresk, and I'm going to color code it. I like to color code my areas, just makes it easy visually for me, even though I'm colorblind actually. So I'm going to make this kind of a darkish reddish color, and there we have Kresk folder. Now we're going to create our first scene. And we're going to create this little leaf icon, and it's going to be the gatehouse. Gatehouse. Now the thing that pops up is this blank canvas, and I can tell you as when I was first using Foundry, and I can imagine this first time DMs, this is really intimidating. I want to run this campaign, I'm ready to have some fun, and you've given me this blank canvas. What am I going to do with it? Well, that's the whole point of this tutorial, is to hopefully make this easy for you, to give you kind of a methodology of creating these journal entries for you. Now, I look at my journal entry as two different things: player facing and dungeon master or game master facing. In fact, everything that you would have in your GM screen, in your GM notes and your campaign notes will be in this journal, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, the first thing we're going to do to make your life really easy is we're going to put a line of demarcation in here to separate everything that your players can see and everything that are your secret GM notes. So we're going to click this little button over here, which is going to allow us to edit our journal entry. And the first thing that you're going to see pop up is this white bar with some stuff in here about paragraph editing, with some headlines and making things bold. You're going to see you can put in some bullet point lists. You can see we can put in some numbered lists, images, tables, links, etc. Pretty simple. We've seen this before in all kinds of standard editors and word processing. The first thing I'm going to do is hit enter a couple of times, and I'm going to see this line in the middle. This is a horizontal line. Think of this as the demarcation line. Everything above this line is for your players. Everything below the line is for you, the game master. Now, what am I going to put up here? What do I want my players to be able to see? Well, we're going to go to, I've purchased Curse of Strahd through D&D Beyond, and it doesn't matter if you've purchased a PDF or some other module or adventure, whether it's on Drive-Through RPG or from DM's Guild or from D&D Beyond, you're going to have some information that you're going to be pulling stuff through and pasting it in here. So I'm going to go to the village of Kresk here, and we're at the gatehouse. So I'm clicking on the gatehouse. And the first thing in here is they've included some flavored text. So I'm going to go ahead and copy. And I'm going to hit Control C. Going back into here, I'm going to click in here. And now here's my first tip. If I want to paste that text without formatting, I'm going to hit Control Shift and V, Control Shift V, and that will paste the text without any formatting. And I'll just go through real quickly and show you. If I paste it, just Control V, you're going to get this formatting in here. If you don't like the formatting, you can go ahead and highlight it. And this I with this little X on it, well, that'll clear any formatting from it right away. But again, it's a lot easier if you hit Control Shift and V so you can paste without formatting. So now we have this flavored text. There's also an image of the Burgermeister, the mayor of Kresk, that I can use from the Curse of Strahd D&D Beyond. And here's the image of him right here with his wife. This is the Burgermeister here. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this image, hit Control C. I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to hit image link. I'm going to put the source in here. And all of a sudden the image pops up. Now you can see the image is a little big in here. I'm going to just shrink it down to make it a little bit more manageable in here for us. There we go. We got the image in here and I made it a little bit more manageable. And so now I have that text and information that we're going to have for the players. Now we're going to do everything below this line in here. Now this is where you want to keep your note succinct. That means short and to the point. You want to use bullet points if you can, and keep things very tight so that you can reference them quickly in the game so that you can not break the narrative or the story, the role-playing, or even the combat in the game. You don't want to copy and paste a bunch of stuff in here, just the notes that you want to add. Now the first thing I do is put in some notes that are relevant to the scene, some information that are key that might impact whether it's combat or whatever that's going on, or some additional details that players may be needing to know or I need to know. So when we go back in here and we read about it, we'll notice that there's some upper floor of each tower. There's some window slits. They're 4 feet tall. It's also 20 feet below the ground. So the walls are about 20 feet high. This is some important information. So I'm going to go ahead and copy, and I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to hit Control Shift and V and paste that in here. I'm also going to put in gatehouse more info. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this more info. I'm going to click on link, and I'm going to go back over here and say I'm going to use the gatehouse link up here. This is a link to the D&D Beyond website, and just hit link here. So I can always here in my GM notes just push this button here and it's going to link me right back to D&D Beyond to the gatehouse. Now I've got that text in here, but I want to put in some notes, some important notes that from the text, and just bullet point them that are important that I need to be aware of. So I'm going to use in here, I'm going to use the bullet point section. So I'm going to go down here and hit enter. I'm going to hit bullet point. My first bullet point is, let's read about it. So we got some archers in here. We're going to add them. So 5 rounds of combat. Here's some stuff. Double doors are made of thick wood. The doors require a siege engine to break them open. So the gate doors are pretty tough. So I'm going to hit Control Copy, go back here, gate doors, colon, and Control Shift V. They require a siege engine to break open. I'm going to go with the next bullet point. What's important here that I should need to know? Every 300 foot of wall is watched over by a lone guard. The guards are trained to any site of danger. So I'm going to hit Control Copy, go back here, input walls, and hit colon, and I'm going to hit Control Shift V. So there's a lone guard every 300 feet. Guards are trained to crouch behind the wall and sound the alarm. So this is just some succinct information that I need to know about this gatehouse. The next thing I'm going to do is going to hit enter a couple of times and put in NPC. And the first NPC we're going to talk about is the Burgermeister Dimitri. Now, I've already in the game have created my actors for Kresk, so I have Dimitri right here. I've already created him, the character in here. I want to make a separate video about creating characters, but I'm just going to drag and drop him right here. There he is. He's in here already. So I have Dimitri as the actor. What this is going to do is going to create a link directly to the character sheet. It has his name and everything in there. This is really one of the neat, simple functionalities that really make this powerful, the journal a powerful thing for us dungeon masters. I want to put in some flavored text about him. What is it about him that I need to know? Something simple and succinct. And it says right here something really interesting. His ancestors built Kresk at the foot of the abbey after Strahd's armies conquered the valley. This is just a really interesting thing, a note about a little bit about the background of him. So I'm going to copy and hit Control-Shift-V here. And again, I'm going to put some bullet points underneath here because they're going to be interacting with the Burgermeister. This is going to be a role-playing that could turn into combat or just something else. So I'm going to put a couple of notes in here, bullet point notes that are important for me to know to be able to share with the players during the game session. So as we read through here, we're going to read, there's just a paragraph here. We're just going to pull some notes out of this paragraph. He has seen adventures before and assumes that the characters are Strahd's allies or enemies. Either way, these adventurers' presence or trouble for Kresk. That's a really good thing that we're going to be able to role play as Dimitri. So we're going to copy that and we're going to put that in as a note here. So we're going to put in Control-Shift-V. That's the first note. What's the second note that we want to put in here? If the characters want to gain entry, they can ask what they can do, and he asks them to secure a wagon load of wine from the Wizards of Winery to the south, as people have been without wine for days, and the next delivery is long overdue. So I can copy and paste this sentence, put that in here. I'm going to put another note to gain entry in favor. I'm going to hit colon. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-V, and now we have that in here. What's something else that could inspire? Oh, if the characters try to force their way into town, Dimitri tells the guards to stand down to avoid bloodshed, but he does everything to expedite the character's departure. So I'm going to put this in here. And I hit combat, and I'm going to hit, again, Control-Shift-V. And if characters force their way into town, just stand down to avoid bloodshed, and does everything to departure. Okay, there was something else in here I noticed here, is characters succeed a wisdom check, he'll decide he's hiding the grief of his young son. So he is hiding the grief of his son as a wisdom DC check of 15. So let's go ahead and put that in here. Insight DC 12. I'm going to put a colon and I'm going to put Control-Shift-V. He's hiding the grief of his son. The other thing I want to add in here is in the beginning of Curse of Strahd, there's some lore about Strahd and vampires that Barovians, people that live in Barovia, know. I'm going to put that in there. So if the players ask about Strahd, I'm going to put a roll table in here about Strahd. Put colon in here. There's a roll table that I created already called Strahd and Vampires. I'm going to just drag that roll table right here, and the roll table's in there. So now I've got everything about my actor Dimitri. Now the guardhouse has some guards in it, right? So we're going to put those in here too. So the guardhouse, let's go back here and read about it real quick. Guardhouse has 2 archers in it, so I'm going to go back here and put in 2, and I already have those archers ready to go, so I'm going to drag over Kresk archers. Boom, they're in there. And I'm going to put in here a note, partial cover, because they're going to be firing from those those slots that we mentioned, of those arrow slits. So they're going to be under some kind of cover. And put that important note in case we go into combat. There's also, according to the campaign, there are 4 guards that on the adjacent walls. 4 guards man the adjacent wall. So we're going to put that in there. So we got 4 guards, and we're going to grab over the guards and put them in here. And there was another note that we wanted to make reference to. Remember, if they sound the alarm, right? If characters are trying to engage, or if there's danger, the guards will sound the alarm. And in 5 rounds after the alarm sounds, every able-bodied adult villager will arrive at the gatehouse ready for battle. Kresk militia consists of 4 more guards plus 40 commoners. So let's put that in there. So if there's alarm in 5 rounds, whoop, the following arrive. And we have 4 more guards arrive, so I'm going to just grab those. And we have 40 adult villagers with hand axes. Okay, 40 villagers with hand axes that come to rescue. Now, I've got all my notes in here. I'm just going to make some of these bold just to make things easy for me. Bold, here's my NPCs. Put NPCs in. Just trying to clean this up just a little bit here. And inline bold, we have our gatehouse actors. We're going to put those in bold. And we have if the alarms following arrives, and we're going to put those in bold as well. Now, the next thing we're going to do is make all of this hidden. And we do that, that's everything below the line. Remember, everything below the line is for me, the Dungeon Master, the Game Master. We're going to go up to paragraphs, and we're going to go to custom, and we're going to hit secret. And we're going to hit save. Now, this is what our final journal entry is going to look like. You're going to have this text at the top with a picture. All of the stuff above this line is for your players. You can share and show your players. There's nothing in here that's going to impact the game. Actually, it's some additional flavor text and information that helps them. And then below the line is everything is marked in secret. Players can't see this. So we have Dimitri. If I click on this, it brings up my character actor of him. I have my notes about Dimitri in here, about the gate entry in favor, comes quest. In fact, I'm going to add a couple of things here. In fact, it says in here, Wizards of Wine here. So here's a quest here. Gain entry goes to the Wizards of Wine. So I'm going to go ahead and make a link to that. Wizards of Wine right here. This is a link to the section in Curse of Strahd about Wizards of Wine. He also talks about Area 3, about his child. So I'm going to find Area 3 in here and found that area here. And I'm just going to put a link in there too. So if I need to reference it and I need to go back to the website for whatever reason, I can just quickly link to that information. So now I've got it all saved. This looks really good. I'm really happy with this. Now, what happens, we want to add something else. We've got this image. The journal also offers us an ability to put in one large image that we want to share independently of the text. And we can do that up here. There's a little button icon. It says image. We click on that, and we're going to go to the folder and select our image. Here's Kresk here. I'm going to select that and hit the check mark. And now we have this image of Kresk. So we have the text in here for our players, flavored text with an image. We have all the stuff that I need to know about the gatehouse, a couple of key features about the gate door, the walls. It's about 20 feet high. I have my NPC, the roll table. For instance, they ask them about Strahd. I just click on this. It brings up my roll table. I can quickly roll. And the information will be shared directly to my players. A vampire must rest in its coffin during the day. At night, it can summon wolves and vermin to do its bidding. A vampire can transform into a bat, a wolf, or a cloud of mist. In its human form, it can dominate you with its powerful gaze. So these are just things that were already included in Curse of Strahd. I just created a roll table. I'll make a separate video about creating roll tables. But what I wanted to show is the importance of being able to drag the roll table right into your Game Master Notes. So this is technically your Game Master screen right here in your journal notes. You've just created it, all the information that you need to do this. Now let's talk about the two different modules, Polyglot and Game Master Notes, and how I use them. Let's say, for instance, we want to incorporate Polyglot into this. And let me tell you about what Polyglot does and how it works. So you can see right here is we have a section that says, carved into the arch above the doors of the gate to Kresk is the name Kresk. But I want to include some Polyglot in here, just for fun. So it says below the name is engraved the following. And I said only friends of Kresk can enter. Now I'm going to highlight this, and what Polyglot allows us to do is put some of the text into different languages. And what it does is it creates a different kind of script, different runes for each different language. And only players who can read that particular language will be able to decipher the text. So let me show you how this works. So for instance, I'm going to highlight this text. Polyglot installs this other menu down here, which you can select a language. I'm going to select Dwarvish, for instance, and I'm going to hit save. Now you're going to see it's in orange. That means that this isn't a language. If I highlight over it, it says Dwarvish. There's a little icon at the top with that says Polyglot toggle runes. If I click this off, it's going to show me the Dwarvish language. So if I share this with the players who can't read Dwarvish, this is what they're going to see. Now let's go ahead and put another language in here. I'm going to write just below it the same thing, but in a different language. Friends of Kresk can enter. And I'm going to make this one into, let's say, Elvish. So Polyglot, and we're going to go select to Elvish. We're going to hit save. And when we see this, we have two different, we have Elvish written here and Dwarvish written here. Now I'm going to show this to my players. I'm going to jump to a player screen so you can see what the players see. So I'm going to hit show players. And my players see this. They're not going to see, you can see there's a line right here. Everything below this line they can't see. That's where the secret was GM notes or DM notes are. But they get to see all this text. And you're going to notice something interesting in here. This particular player character, if I click on the player character right here, you're going to notice that this particular player character can read Dwarvish. So it can read what's in Dwarvish here, but if I highlight over this, it doesn't know what language this is. This is a really cool way to incorporate and use those language flavors in the game. And one of the reasons you want to introduce this Polyglot into some of your notes is this allows players to keep things to themselves. For instance, maybe a player can speak a particular language and there's some clues and stuff in there that they don't want to share with other party members. This really helps add to a flavor and engagement and role playing, and allows us to really take advantage of those different Dungeons and Dragons languages. I really love this feature. In fact, I actually wrote an entire book in one of my journal entries in a particular language and shared it with all the players, but only one player could read it and decide to share what they wanted to because they are the only ones that can read that language. It's a really cool thing that we can do. So let's talk about the next module in here, which is GM Notes. And how do I use GM Notes? Well, I don't really like to, once I have my entire scene set up, we have this gatehouse scene and the battle map scene. I've got everything I want to share with my players up here at the top. And then down below, I have all my GM notes that I'm going to be using for running this scene. What I use my GM notes for, when you click on this up here, the module adds this, it opens a brand new window that's linked directly to this journal entry. Now, the way that I use GM notes is I take in-game session notes. Instead of using another module, or actually another application or writing notes on hand, I just type them in here. So for instance, we're playing the game and my players, they agree with the Burgermeister that they're going to go to the Wizard's Wine and get the wine. I'm going to just put in here, players agree to get wine and return. The players, now it's getting later in the session, they're going to make camp and do a long rest outside of the gates. So party camps outside gates, long rest. Okay. Any other notes in here? So throughout the game session, I keep notes within the scene in my GM notes, and it doesn't clutter up any of the notes of my journal entry for this particular scene. And so I can keep all these notes in here. Now, when the game is over, I can go back and review them, say, okay, well, this was, what session was this? This was session 20, and I can even put in the date, let's say 5/12 is the date, and any other notes I want to put in there, maybe a player's injured or they found an item. And once I do that, I go ahead and save it. And when I'm done and getting ready to do my next session prep, I can go move GM notes over to description, and it empties out my GM notes here. And guess what it did? It put them at the bottom. It just goes ahead and adds those GM notes to the bottom of the description over here, which makes it really easy for me. Now, if I want my players to see this, I can just leave this in here and not make it secret and just leave it in here. And what's really nice is that if I share, again, show my players can see, again, any of the session notes in there that I want to share with the players. It gives them a reminder. Now, the last thing that I do with my notes here is when I go over to my folder and I click on the gatehouse, I like to, in many cases, configure positions and allow my players to be observer of this journal entry. Now, what this allows my players to do, and this is what's going to happen on my player side, is under journal entries, they're going to see the folder Kresk, and they're going to see Gatehouse, and they can click on it at any time they want to. They can revisit the flavor text. Again, they can't see any of the hidden GM notes or DM notes, and I even put session notes in there that they can refer to. They can even click on it and see the image of the Kresk gates. By the way, this image is from James RPG Art. I'll put a link to his stuff below. He's done an entire beautiful art for all of Curse of Strahd, even animated art as well, so I'll put a link in there below. But this allows the players to always come back and visit this for their own information, right? And this helps, by giving them observable entries, this allows them to have their notes, and notes are already ready for them. They have information already in there, including the polyglot stuff that they can read or not read, depending on what language that you put them in. Well, I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. Please click like and subscribe down below. I really love Foundry, and I love sharing the different things that I've learned in Foundry. Until next time, this is Parm King signing off, and may all your roles be critical success, and I hope you're enjoying Foundry and your role-playing game as much as I am.